How did each state trend on a presidential level between 1956 and 2024? That's what we're going to look at today. Last week, we took a look at the shifts in each state. Today, we'll compare those shifts to the national shift, and that'll show us the trend. We'll break it all down in just a minute, and of course, we'll have a map at the end. But let's quickly glance over these two elections. I'm not really going to cover 24. We're going to focus here on the less familiar election of 1956. That was Dwight Eisenhower winning re-election in a landslide. He got 457 electoral votes out of 41 states, and he got 57.4% of the national popular vote. Adlai Stevenson took the loss for the Dems. He got 73 electoral votes out of 7 states, and that was worth 42%. Then we've got 24 up there. Again, I'm not going to cover it, but it's a much closer election than 1956. So let's hop on to everybody's favorite, the spreadsheet. On the left, we've got the states. Then it's the 56 vote for Stevenson, then Eisenhower, then the 24 vote for Harris, then Trump. Then we've got the margin at 56 shaded accordingly. Then it's the same for 24. Then it's the column from last week. These are the shifts or the swings at each state. That's just the difference between the two previous columns. Then all the way on the right, we've got the trends. This will compare the individual swing in each state to the national swing, and that's going to get us the trend. And these two columns on the right also have shading. The darkest colors are 10 or more. The lightest are under 5%. So in order to get started, we first got to get our national baseline. So nationally, in 1956, Adlai Stevenson got 42%. Dwight Eisenhower got 57.4%. In 24, Kamala Harris got 48.3%. Donald Trump got 49.8%. The margin for Eisenhower in 56 was 15.4%. The margin for Trump in 24 was 1.5%. The difference between those two columns comes out to a 13.9% swing toward the left. That's a dark blue shade, and both of them are Republican wins, but of course 24 way narrower nationally in the popular vote. So any state that moved more than 13.9 is going to have a blue trend. Anything less than that or in the other direction is going to have a red trend. So let's break down the first state. We've got Alabama. That was one of the 7 states Stevenson won at 56. He got 56.5. Eisenhower got 39.4. In 24, Harris went down to 34.1. Trump won the state with 64.6. The margin for Stevenson in 56 was 17.1. The margin for Trump in 24 was 30.5. That's 17.1% away from Stevenson, another 30.5 toward Trump. You combine those, you get a swing of 47.6 toward the Republicans. And that 47.6 is in the opposite direction of the national swing. So the difference between the entire country moving 13.9 toward the left, and at the same time Alabama moving 47.6 toward the right, you combine those numbers, you get a massive red trend of 61.5%. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we can quickly go through the rest of these states. But in this election, we're down to 48 states. No Alaska, no Hawaii. So next up, we've got Arizona. That did get 16.5% bluer. That was more than the national popular vote. So this state has a small blue trend of 2.6. Arkansas, another massive red trend of 51.2. We've got blue trends in California at 17.4, Colorado 16.8, Connecticut 28, and Delaware 11.3. Florida had a 1.5% blue swing, but that wasn't enough to keep up with the national movement, so it still had a red trend of 12.4. Georgia way back up there toward the right at 49.9. Idaho way less than that, but still significant at 28. Illinois was Adlai Stevenson's home state. He lost it by a ton, but the state did trend toward the left at 16.2. Indiana went in the other direction at 12.6. Iowa a little less so at 8.7. Kansas had a minuscule blue shift of 1.1. Kentucky is hard toward the right at 35.3. Louisiana 22.1. Then it's blue trends in Maine at 34.8, Maryland 34.6, and Massachusetts 30.2. Little redder in Michigan at 3.9, and Minnesota 2.1. Then in Mississippi, this state had the biggest trend out of all the states. It comes in at an astonishing 70.5% toward the Republicans. Missouri is also up there at 32.5, Montana 19.6, Nebraska same direction but way less at 3.5. Then in Nevada, they had the smallest trend out of all the states. That comes in at a tiny 1% toward the GOP. Now it's blue trends in New Hampshire at 21.3, New Jersey 22.5, New Mexico 8.1, and New York 21. Then we've got red trends in North Carolina at 18.5, North Dakota 26.8, Ohio 2.7, and Oklahoma and even 38. Oregon had movement toward the Dems at 10.9, Pennsylvania a little bit toward the right at 2.4. Rhode Island had double-digit blue movement at 16.4. South Carolina is way up there toward the Republicans at 51.9. Also redder, it's South Dakota at 26.3, Tennessee 43, Texas 16.3, and Utah 5.9. Then in Vermont, this state had the biggest trend toward the Dems out of all the states. The final total comes in at a monster 62%. Then in Virginia, continuing toward the Dems, it's 8.8, Washington 12.8. West Virginia is heavy toward the Republicans at 47.6. Wisconsin toward the Dems at an even 9. And Wyoming comes in toward the Republicans at 39.5. That's it. Those are all the states and all the shifts. Of course, like we do in every video, we're going to take all this data, we're going to put it on a map. So here's what we've got. We've got the same shading, 3 levels of it. 10 or more points are the darkest colors, under 5% are the lightest. No tilt margins of under 1% this time, although Nevada had the smallest shift coming in at an even 1. That went toward the Republicans. Kansas was right behind toward the Dems at 1.1. Now at the top, using the current electoral vote map, the Republicans have the bragging rights as states moved in their direction, totaling 292 electoral votes. For the Dems, it's 236. And keep in mind, Eisenhower had a pretty big landslide in 1956. The entire country moved 13.9% toward the left. So in order to escape a red trend, each state had to move further toward the left than 13.9. It's easier said than done, but over all that time, a bunch of them did move further in that direction, and those states trended way bluer. But many of them only moved a little bit in that direction, or moved in the opposite direction, and they trended way redder. It's not a blowout, but we can see that the Republicans dominate in the South and the upper Great Plains. Dems do serious damage on the West Coast and Northeast and Illinois. Parts of the Midwest are a little bit more mixed, but the Rust Belt states do split toward the Republicans, including Minnesota, but in between, Wisconsin goes toward the Dems. So this map not extremely dissimilar from the last election. Of course, Arizona, Kansas, and Wisconsin did not go blue. And of course, Minnesota did not go red. And the margins are way off in most of these states. But it does kind of resemble the modern map we're used to seeing. There's a ton of differences here over these 6+ decades. But maybe the more fascinating thing might be the states that didn't really move all that much over all these elections. Anything that doesn't have a dark shade, and especially the lighter shades, they all moved under 5%. So as far as trends go, they were content moving along with the country from 56 to 24. And that's close to that 13.9% national movement. But it's always impressive to see the extremes, as well as the lack of extremes spanning all these elections. The reasons these states trended the way that they did is an entirely separate video. But for now, these are the presidential trends in each state between 1956 and 2024. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the trends in any of these states? Which surprised you the most? Which surprised you the least? What do you think of this final map? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.